All right, let's get into specific tracks and show you where I move them and try to figure out why I moved them. So here's the just orchestra, which is not really orchestra. It's guitars and whatnot. So this is the second one.
Oh, this is a different effect. Oh no, that's the basis. So when I'm delivering these, I'm thinking, well, he's going to have the ability to move these around. So I'm listening to parts that I want him to be able to independently put into different speakers if he chooses to.
Yeah, which those I did move out a little bit. I didn't go crazy because they're more of kind of like the orchestra, if you will, in concept. So I kept that with the actors in front more. And then some of these others I moved out more, like this one is brass, and I moved it like halfway back.
We of course picked a spot that everything is doing the same thing.
Yeah, we can do a different spot if you like. I just picked the next cue. So here's more like flute sounds and other things. I moved that more further back because it was more ambient in a way.
And that's all flutes.
Pedro. So that one I did put further back, like a choir, so to speak. Okay, if we go back to the rescue room scene and all that, I'll go through these a little quicker for you.
Distorted orchestra.
And that one's kept fairly up front, but just a little bit of width.
And this one is just up front.
This is all up front, like where it was. Giving us more of a motor and more direct sounding, so I didn't want that out here moving around like that. This one's halfway back. And then this one is halfway back as well.
This is also a zebra sort of doing its...
This one's all the way back and up higher, so it has that more ethereal quality. Percussion I kept up front.
We lost some metals there, huh? At the end of the day.
We did. We muted this particular track.
What was it? Just out of curiosity.
What was it? Let's see.
Okay, too pitchy.
Pitchy, and it was with the ornithopters and all that, it was
Got it.
elements that were cutting through. There's lots of reasons. So here's some more perk. All the perk I kept pretty much where Alan left it up front. Some higher ones.
Booms.
Now this Duduk and not this real Duduk or something.
It's real Duduk.
Beautiful sounding. Or lighter perk thing that I kept up front. This one I've spread just a little bit. This is all the same cue with all these elements.
So in fact, I'm very happy with what I'm seeing because he's really keeping the integrity of the music, of the mix of the stems. He's just using subtle positioning to increase the width in a way that I could never in a million years do. So this sort of validates the whole concept of me giving him 5/1 or 7/1 stems and letting him do that.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole point is to keep the integrity of what Hans wrote, what Alan did spatially, and then just...
I mean, so far, all I've heard that wasn't from my hands is a little reverb on the choir. And I'm sure there's EQ and stuff in there too, but still.
Yeah, there's more subtle EQ on certain things.
Of course.
I'd have to go open up every plugin to show you, but
No, we don't want to do that.
we don't have to get into that. It's FabFilter EQ.
But it sure does sound like my mix. I mean, it literally just sounds exactly like my mix, just a little bit more width and depth and height to it.
Exactly. And sometimes I'll add more sub on certain hits or this, but then Hans showed up with all these basses, like, oh my God, that's a lot of low end. So you got to kind of focus in the low end, which I'm sure Alan wrestled with as well, is shaping that low end, which is very important because it gets very cloudy very quickly. And what I mean by shaping the low end is some EQ curve that would pull out some of the more boxy elements and give the fuller part of it to speak better. And it just takes out that lower mid, like 200 to 300 or 400, somewhere in there, depending on the sound. And you pull that back and bring up maybe 60 or 80 or whatever. These are all very general numbers I'm throwing out, but it's allowing a curve that'll give you what you want and take away some of the cloudy elements. That's the point.
Right. So like for those of you who've worked with me, the FabFilter multiband with the Meyerson setup where I have the 5 frequencies next to each other, and I create one threshold out of it so that it is sort of doing just a little bit of the work, taking out the boxiness for you.
Just kind of clarify the difference of what he did and then why I would do that again or a similar thing is Alan's making the music sound great together and it sounds fantastic. Then I have to put it in with an ornithopter, people speaking, a sandworm, whatever is coming up. And maybe that ornithopter has a certain frequency to it that is clouding up the music, and I need to either push something or pull something back EQ-wise or level-wise to make those glue together better. So it's elements that Alan doesn't have that now I have that I have to readjust my score elements to fit that track.
Right. There's one other thing, too, that's really important is there are a lot of creative decisions I can't make because I'm not on the stage with the director. So when we were talking about futzing before, I wanted to mention this. I can't really do a futz because, and by what I mean with a futz, either rolling out all the bottom end, rolling out all the top end, doing something to make it sound of something else. Because if I do it, then they only have the one choice, which is mine. And I guarantee you that's probably not going to be the choice they're going to want. So they have to have the ability to do that. So there are times where I know it's going to get futzed, but so the smart money is me not doing it and trusting the next person down the chain.
Yeah, futzes are very unique to every movie.
Right.
Some people like them lightly futzed. Some people really crush them. Like some of the radio voices in here, the track I recorded and Mangini and Theo and all these, voices that are talking to each other on the radios, they're super crushed and like right up on the mic like a helicopter. And other times there are phone calls and they're lighter and more open. Sometimes they'll even play them straight across, even though they're on a phone. But if you bake that in first, you're screwed because it's not going to be that way, I guarantee you, when you put everything in and what a director likes.
And imagine if you do a music futz where you're rolling out all the low end before a certain spot or a certain cut that they can't get back. You can't just put back in the low end if it's not there.
No.
Yeah, so that... There's talking about futzes. There is rumor, I believe it's true, that on the Cary Grant stage many, many years ago in the early 90s, there was a closet that had an omnidirectional microphone in it and like 20 speakers of different varieties, foghorns and things like that. And they could just patch anything into anything and create their own sort of bespoke futz.
It was pretty cool. I remember seeing it. And there's also a big box that someone made like on the floor, and it had all the speakers and the same idea with a mic in it. And you're doing a an analog version of real, like worldizing, which is another term I should explain.
Walter Murch.
Yeah, but it's a really cool thing to do if done properly, of course. But you're actually taking a speaker, playing your sound into it, miking it, and that's the sound it makes. So if you have a tiny speaker, you're going to get like that, and maybe it's a phone call or whatnot. So, and that's a great way to do it. You don't always have the time and the box and the whole thing and go through all this machinations. We have great plugins now that do it.
Mac DSP Futzbox.
That's one. Yeah, Futzbox is great. I use that. The SoundToys stuff was great.
SoundToy stuff.
Speakerphone does a lot of that too.
Speakerphone is a great one.
So that gives you a plethora of things to look to try and try out. A lot of those I try not to just automate and leave it sitting there automate. One trick I love to do, which I'll share with you, is that on a Futz, I'll take my own voice, I'll record it, and I'm supposed to be on the helicopter, let's say. So I'll keep that dry voice, I'll compress it and maybe EQ it a little bit and like get it to sound like, a little bit more in the speaker, but it's clean and it's me and you understand it and everything's great. Then I'll take my track of that and I'll copy it and then I'll futz the heck out of it. I'll put it through speakerphone or whatever else and crunch it up and distort it and really compress it harder. And I use that and I blend the two. What that gives you is the sense of, oh, that's a futz in the helicopter. It's cool. And then when you put it with everything else, like, guess what? You can't understand what I just said. So I bring back the cleaner one on top of it until I have that nice balance that, wow, I hear everything I just said, but it sounds like I'm in the helicopter. And I do that all the time.
For all you parallel processor junkies.
Yeah, exactly. Is I have two tracks, do one to one and then the other one, and then you combine them in a way that you like. And it allows you clarity, flexibility, and you can also back one off if you've already done it too much on one of them. So you can bake that in and leave it like that. And that allows you to be able to go back a step in your mix without having two of them baked in and you've rendered the file and you're stuck. Then you have to call up the original, redo it. No one's going to be happy with you because you're spending all this time. So that's a little trick for futzes. So there's, I could go on for this of the stems, but there's on this.
Let's see what 22 is, just out of curiosity.
Old number 22. In this queue, there's 24 7-1 stems.
Oh yeah, that was a popular sound. That was in almost everything.
Yeah. And that one too.
So that's Nico Abangolo. And then you had some ads that you ended up not using, obviously, that group.
There was some basses that we didn't add in this particular spot. Each queue's different. Right. We go through them all. And sometimes there's one muted or not. This queue had two things muted, and some of the additional things we didn't add because of whatever reasons playing against it. It's not like we arbitrarily that's enough and we mute stuff. That's not the case. But you go through and say, okay, do we need this? Is it fighting? If we take it out, is it clear? And you have to be a little judicious about things. Of course, I don't just throw stuff out. It's Hans's score, and I respect him to the moon. I love what he did, and I'm going to play everything I can and get it the best I can. That's my goal. Sometimes it helps him, though, if I take something out or move something and we are able to play the cue more because I moved it or we took it out, or Clint, our music editor, was clever and shuffled things around and moved them to play better in the scene because of what else is going on. That's what we have for you today. I know I covered a whole bunch of material and very detailed and some conceptual things, but I hope you got a lot out of this and get to see a little bit of what I do and what we all do for sound for film. It's a complicated process, a lot of moving parts and a lot of different people and jobs, but hopefully you'll get a sense of what we do and the complexity and what goes into a track when you get to sit down and watch your favorite movie and go, wow, that was really cool. Well, what made it cool? What made it sound like that? What did we do to maybe help guide you in having a fun, entertaining evening? And that's really our goal, is to give you a great track and enjoy a film. Thank you very much.
Bye.